Our question today is, what can happen when we are compelled to change?
Okay, we're going to jump into that super interesting, slightly painful idea and topic, but we're going to review first. This is just a review that's left over on iTunes, and it says episode 7, creating connection. It says episodes 1 through 7 are essential. I like the idea mentioned 7.5 minutes in that defines connection, that we must first feel safe and then trust that we will move us and that will move us to vulnerability and connection. I totally botched that, but yeah, creating connection is a super important concept and principle that we never had a clue about.
Right. Well, and I love these because I have no idea what episodes 1 through 7 are. So we'll have to go look that up. It's been a while.
Yeah,
so
it has been a minute. So appreciate leaving that review, taking a minute to do that and to be so precise.
Yes. Okay. So I'm excited because we have my friend here, Alison, and she's awesome. So Alison Faulkner is from the Alison Show, and she's made a career of doing whatever she feels like doing. That's part of the reason I love her. But it always involves finding ways to feel awesome and help others feel awesome too. She is a branding and events expert with highly engaged online community. She hosts an iTunes Top 100 podcast and her music producer hubby called Awesome with Alison, and founded Alison's Brand School, which has helped thousands through workshops and online courses that empower entrepreneurs with heart to build a brand that can support their dreams. Guys, that was the first course that I went to, and that's exactly why we started our podcast, which is Alison. So I feel like it's a big deal that you're here. So Alison collaborates and consults with Fortune 500 companies. She believes in love, dancing inappropriately, and putting her own name in lights. So the reason I have Alison here today is because Alison continues, just like her bio said, she continues to show up, but also helping and inspiring other people through the ups and downs that we all experience in life. And I was telling Alison before we started, I used to be really embarrassed that I was so compelled to make change. Coby and I had a lot of hard things happen in our own marriage where, I showed up to therapy and I showed up to groups and I started working on myself, and I felt frustrated that I wasn't the person that was just a go-getter and I was just going to go dive in and unravel everything. I don't think it's a bad thing to be compelled. And Alison's a great example, I think, of both. She's highly driven and also compelled to change.
Yeah.
So Alison, we wanted to just, we've told them a little bit about where you are now, but how long has it been since you were compelled a little, maybe big, and hit by a car to slow down?
Yes. So Ashlynn told me why she thought about me for this episode. First, thank you for all the kind things. I'm very excited to be here. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. So I just think the concept of compelled to change is interesting, even just like the words, right? Like compelled to change, because for me, even shifting my mindset around like the word compelled, where I really love to kind of try to get to sit in the space of, I have everything I need for this moment. And the things that I'm going to need for the next moment, if I need them, I will have them. And that's not just financially or maybe physically, but also like circumstantially, experience, right? If I needed those experiences before, I would have had them before because I needed them. And so even this compelled to change, to kind of like release some of that shame and let it go, I kind of like coming to, if you had needed to be compelled, if you could have come to it on your own, you would have. And how do you know that you couldn't? Because you didn't. And so that's it. That's it. So it's kind of like, so to start with that. So what you're referring to, I've been compelled to change a lot. But I think what you're referring to in terms of slowing down is not just coronavirus, which is a world, which is crazy. we have as a collective world, almost not everywhere in the world, but been compelled to slow down and to pause. It's a collective world breath, like all, which is crazy.
It really is.
We've continued to see with like a civil rights movement in the US. I mean, what can happen after you're compelled to slow down in this case, or pause? And so for me, this was about 2.5 years ago. Prior to that, so like we journey back in time about 3 or 4 years. I was really in the momentum of growth in my business and in my life. And I've been building an online platform for over a decade, blogging, Instagram, speaking at events, then throwing in-person huge parties, huge events, and just kind of never thinking it was enough, but also looking back, like that was a huge growth explosion. And people are like, you're blowing up. And I'm like, no, I haven't. I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years. Growth, and you guys probably know this, like you feel uncomfortable when you're growing, but you don't always recognize it as growth.
Oh, yes.
Completely.
Right? And so all you feel is uncomfortable and overwhelmed, and you're like, you can't appreciate it. And then people come to my workshops or talk to me and all they want is growth. And I'm like, you could be growing, you could be growing right now and you don't even know. So, and so I stopped. I forced myself to slow down when all these events and all this growth was happening, because I was just having anxiety attack after anxiety attack after anxiety attack. And in a way, I could look at that as being compelled to slow down. And that was at the beginning of 2017. So at the beginning of 2017, I stopped throwing any large parties. I stopped taking any sponsored contracts because they weren't bringing me joy. I basically stopped making money any way that I had previously made money, and was like, what can I do to take care of me? What can I do to grow? Like, what can I do? Right? We good? Okay. And then 2017 started building its own momentum as I started healing. And I got in a really good place physically. I started doing things that I had wanted to do for forever, like start my podcast, Awesome with Alison. I had wanted to do branding work. And so I held my first How to Build an Awesome Brand workshop. Ashlynn was there, and these things started growing, and I started rolling that ball again, but it was from a healthier place. And it was right at the peak of this where I was like, oh yes, look at me. I'm using my mindfulness. I'm doing my gratitude practices. I'm running. I'm in good health. I've got like my eating good. I've got my exercise good. I just signed my first 6-figure contract. I'm so wonderful. Like, but still kind of that, I think with growth, you can have a frantic energy. Mm-hmm. And
can you say more about that, Alison? That's actually a really interesting term. Say more about what that looks like for you.
I love frantic action versus inspired action. And frantic action, what is it stemming from? And so we think, just as a community, as a society, we label action for the most part as a positive, good hustle. We're in a hustle culture.
Yeah, totally.
Take action, grow, go. We see all growth is good, all hustle is good, as all action as labeled good. But to nuance that for me, inspired action very often feels almost effortless. I'm not forcing it. I'm not pushing it. I'm not coercing. And to me, the opposite of effort isn't work. The opposite of effort is force, compulsion, hustle, frantic, movement for the sake of movement, where oftentimes, and this is a Buddhism, right? A Buddhism, I think it might be in the Tao Te Ching actually, but is like inaction is sometimes the correct action.
Totally.
Inaction can still be an action. And so it's not even always that our action is frantic, but sometimes the energy around it can become frantic.
Yep.
And I think it comes to attaching to the momentum and labeling the momentum as good and positive. And if I don't hang on to it, that's bad.
Yeah. So can I just pause you? Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking as our audience is listening, they might feel some of that in a different aspect of like work, but okay, I'm healing from this betrayal or I have betrayed. And
Yeah.
we get into that really like, I got to do all the things and I'm going to do
Yeah.
all these things. And even if they don't serve me, I'm going to do them.
Force is a word that you used,
Force.
which really resonates with
Yeah.
both the person who's betrayed and the person who has been betrayed in effort to remove themselves or get out of the discomfort. And I think that's a really interesting perspective to take, because there's nothing about flow that's in that word force.
Yes.
The effortless piece that you use that word, and I think that's I think very poignant, and I think really important for people to actually hear, not just hear it in their head, but hear it in their heart.
Mm-hmm.
That the best parts of our change can come when we're in the flow, when it's effortless.
The best parts of your change will come when you're in the flow and when it's effortless. And sometimes that looks like inaction or pausing.
Yeah.
And I love that you stopped, because honestly, though I frame it in a business way often, because I attach a lot of value to my achievements as a human being.
Who doesn't?
Personally, but really, like, I have more masculine energy that way. I find where I'm like, I've started to identify as a dad in a lot of ways. I'll hear women complaining about their husbands, and I'll be like, wait, those are all the things I do. Oh.
That's hilarious.
But so to make this contextual or relatable, I was in a frantic self-improvement energy. You are doing all the things, check all the boxes, you are a self-improvement robot. Like, and because you get into this flow and people are like, when is she going to get to the compelled? I'll get there. You just have to sit tight. But like, I have to set the seed. So we turn into these self-improvement robots because you start thinking, change your thoughts, change your life. And that very, very soon turns into control your thoughts, control your life.
Oh, okay. That's so good. You need to say it again.
Oh, Coby,
legit.
Okay. I love making people repeat things, and when people want me to repeat things, I'm like,
yes. Legit though. That's super, super important. Please say it again.
So this is a very healthy place to come at first. Is I can change my thoughts. I'm not a victim. I can change my thoughts and I can change my life. That is like, I've noticed one of the first like stepping stones in self-improvement is believing that, right? But very quickly I noticed, as the hustle, achiever, perfectionist, pleaser, whatever, that if I control all of my thoughts, I can control my life.
Yeah, that's so really interesting.
Because
it does take personal initiative.
Change.
It does take personal responsibility and ownership to say, I'm going to go down this path of healing, of self-improvement, because self-improvement, self-development was a parallel effort for Ashlynn and I at a certain point in recovery. And it blossomed. Like everything that we consumed was indirectly related to recovery for us. Okay. Absolutely. So the idea with it is that, it takes initiative, it takes ownership, it takes responsibility, but then there's this threshold, what you just talked about, right? You need all these things in order to really change. But then this threshold that you just talked about, whereas you can get to this line where you want to control.
Oh yeah.
And that's normal. That's super normal. And I tried that for sure. And I failed miserably at that, like decade after decade after decade. So how can someone be, from your perspective, Alison, be mindful of putting their own effort into it, like doing the things they need to be able to do, but not cross that threshold into control?
Well, honestly, and I don't know if I would have ever been able to couch it this way or narrate it this way. So this is like such a good conversation because I love how it flowed.
Good.
Honestly, what did it for me was what Ashlynn was referring to, being compelled to change at the end of 2017. It was 5 days before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And I had these contracts and I have the checklist of all the things I need to do. And I had my big first meeting for this big client that I was so excited to get. And it was that afternoon. And I was like, the best thing I could do to get ready for that is to go for a run, do a gratitude practice. And I'm on my run 5 days before Christmas. And my neighborhood has big wide streets, but no sidewalks. And I was on the correct side of the street, doing everything I should do. I had even actually prayed about which direction I should run that day. And I had gone one direction and was like, nope, that's not right. And gone the other direction.
Get out.
Isn't that crazy?
Get out.
And as I was returning home, a car took a corner without stopping at the stop sign. And I just watched her hit me. And I mean, so if you want to talk about learning that you aren't in control, being hit by a car, just really, and again, I still have to learn the lesson all the time. I'm not in control. I'm not in, and recent current events, it's a whole other, you're not in control. But this is the crazy thing. Getting hit by a car is crazy. So I was hit.
I can't believe that.
So I was hit. I couldn't get up. The driver was in shock. She got out of the car, but she was in shock. She didn't know what to do. I wasn't unconscious, but I definitely was not all there. I remember kind of some pieces of conversation. She didn't know what to do. I have the whole story on my podcast if you really want to go into it. It's episodes 40 and 41.
That's awesome. Okay.
But the thing that's the craziest, which just shows you a little bit where I was at, is as I was watching the blood pool around my head, because I was on the concrete and it's December, so it's cold, and I'm on the ground. I just was watching the blood grow.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, it's not that much blood. You can still make your meeting later.
Oh, wow.
And
did you know that in the moment when that thought crossed your mind, or did you look back and say, oh my gosh, that was the thought that I had?
No, I looked back, because you're in shock. And I think a lot of people, if I had to guess, who are listening to your podcast can either relate with or maybe understand shock, not like, ooh, I'm shocked, but shock from trauma.
Yeah.
And not realizing that you are in shock and traumatized in the moment. And then you look back and you're like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I say this? Why did I behave this way? Why did I was like not myself at all. And then even then it took me months, if maybe not more, to be like, Alison, you had a head trauma and you were in shock. Like, of course you didn't behave how you thought, because even if you've had shock before, you're not going to behave the same way every time.
Right. And
in recovery and in learning information, it's that earth crack moment, whether you're actually cracked inside of the head, whether you're physically cracked in the head like I was, or you crack from within when you receive information or have an understanding, that's shock.
Yeah.
And so to go to the question of that threshold from, self-improvement to control improvement, basically, if we're going to give them labels, right, was self-compassion. It's self-compassion. And luckily, I was in an amazing place, emotionally, physically, spiritually, when I got hit. And even though I was compelled to slow down, and it was not easy or comfortable or nice, I had to be in bed for months. I had 2 broken ribs, a broken vertebrae. I had to get stitches by my eyebrow where, I was bleeding. I had to be taken by ambulance to the emergency room. And it's been 2.5 years, and it's just been in the last 6 months that I can really run and work out again. Like there was like almost a 2-year healing journey there. Right. And as I was laying in bed, I just was noticing myself beat myself up for not getting more done. And I had just been hit by a car. And so what that showed me, like I said, luckily I was in a place of awareness and mindfulness. And so rather than identifying with, you better stop making such a big deal out about this. You didn't lose a limb. You're not dead. And you guys also probably know that people can say things sometimes when you're in these vulnerable places, like somebody texting me and being like, oh, you're lucky you're not dead. A neighbor I know is dead from being on a run. And I'm like, I am lucky I'm not dead, but would you like to know what it's like to have that much steel hit your body and have flashbacks over and over? I don't think you do. So, but I guess my trauma isn't valid because it's not as bad as this person thinks it should be, right? And we all do that to each other. We all do that to ourselves. But what I learned was, although I had started to heal a relationship, it was like I was in, the only way I can think to describe it is like where I was in a relationship where somebody had been, I thought it was, oh, this person maybe was verbally abusing me. Like, let's just pretend me, myself, but realizing, no, they actually had been like kicking the crap out of me. That's how I was treating myself. And I didn't even think I was.
Wow.
I honestly think most people treat themselves that harshly. I really do.
I agree.
I really do. After talking to so many people, I don't think I'm the only one who beats the crap out of herself. Right?
100%.
No. And honestly, that was like one of the biggest things when I started this whole journey was like, oh, wait, I'm not crazy. Because I really thought all these things were true in my head.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that was a big changer for us. Okay. Yeah. Alison, I had no idea we were going to but the way you described shock, I hope is validating to the listeners because
I hope so too.
Yeah. I have never compared in that way, but it makes so much sense of why it would feel and why we feel crazy and we beat ourselves up or we're not doing it right or we're not showing up enough.
Yeah.
And we have the judgment of others or comparison in story.
Something I learned that was really helpful was that in instances, and again, I'm never trying to compare trauma or rank trauma, but in instances of sexual assault, people who are sexually assaulted, because I've done a lot, I'm not a therapist, but I do a lot of trauma research. I love to talk about this. It's my favorite thing. And it's my favorite thing to talk about trauma. No, but I'm interested in why is it so hard to be a human sometimes? And one of the commonalities is victims blame themselves for not responding better, fighting back. And this is a very common thing in trauma, is that you start to blame yourself. And it's so crazy. This morning, I was talking to my 9-year-old and she had mentioned, did you know this person said they have depression and they take medication for that? And I said, yeah, that's so awesome that they get help, huh? And she was like, yeah. And I said, did you know I have depression and anxiety often too? And she said, really? And I said, all those things mom does like that, but I maybe hadn't labeled it for her. Yeah. And I was talking to her about, I said, actually, and this was a couple of years after I got hit. I'm like, last year I was kind of depressed. Did you notice how mommy would get in bed when she got home from work? And she was like, I love when you're in bed. I like hanging out with you in bed. And I said, after I got hit by the car, I did have some depression even a year later. And she said, but mom, it wasn't your fault you got hit by a car.
Aww.
My 9-year-old said that to me.
That's cool.
Morning, and you can see me almost crying, where I was like, I know it's not my fault I got hit by a car, but sometimes it's hard to not make it your fault that you got hit by whatever your car was.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you inflicted the car on yourself or you inflicted the car on someone else. And I'm not saying we don't take ownership for our actions. But we can't control the universe. And that scares the crap out of everybody.
Yeah. Well, the part you said, and this is what stood out when I listened to your story on your podcast, was the fact that you said, okay, I was doing all the things right. Like we called it our toolkit. We had our toolkit already packed, ready to go. So we had a lot of skills. You had a lot of skills.
Yeah.
You even prayed to God, and you still got hurt.
I got
and
hit real hard.
Yes. And I think for me, I know that was a thing. I know for a lot of the women I work with, that's absolutely a thing, but I'm doing everything right. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And that's probably where a lot of the shame of being compelled to change when I didn't cause this, right? But I still have a part to play. And we still had an entire relationship to rebuild and to create something new. And it couldn't be done without the other.
And so
100%.
I think I love that. But I think like what you're saying too, is it goes back to, it's just perspective, right? Did I cause this? Did I create this? Do you run the universe? Can you control it? In some ways, yes. I believe in manifesting and energy and flow. And in other ways, I just know that what makes us human is our ability to make meaning. That's what differentiates us from animals, is our ability to create meaning. And so we get to create whatever meaning we want, which is why I can't go 24 hours without referencing the Matrix. And
I legit just finished that 2 nights ago. I'm not kidding you. The trilogy. No lie.
Because I believe in the gospel of the Matrix. Amen.
Right.
It's just true. It's truth with a capital T. We create meaning. And so was it supposed to happen? Was I supposed to get hit by a car? Were you supposed to be betrayed? On and on. You can drive yourself crazy. At the end of the day, what I think matters more is, what is the meaning I choose? That's the power. That's the control. That is your role on this earth as a creator. What meaning do I create?
And then from there, once you can create that meaning, then there becomes a hard but a very clear path to navigate from there. Then you can really identify what it is. And it's interesting just thinking of Neo saying, I need to take time, right? In episode 3, I need some time. Yeah. They're like, we don't have time. He's like, I know, I'm going to take time anyways. Yeah. But once he took time and he was with himself and he was quiet, then from that, he knew exactly which path he needed to take. And it was the hard one. It was the one that was most taxing and would demand the most from him. And there was the most risk in that. However, he persevered because he had the appropriate meaning attached to what was before him. And hearing you talk about that is really, really important. And I know for every person, and I'll even speak for the person who has betrayed, there's often this idea, the meaning that I'm broken, I'm no good, I'm unlovable, I can't be forgiven. But what I've learned from all of that, from all my mistakes and mistakes, that trivializes it in some sense, but all the things I've done to devastate Ashlynn, I've learned that there is deeper meaning. There's meaning below what levels below that precipitated all of my actions. And I only found that redefinition, that I redefined my own meaning of why I did what I did when I took time and I saw my path in front of me, which was so hard and so scary, so devastatingly scary, paralyzingly so. But once I went down that path, then I discovered I could redefine that, and I had new meaning behind my choices and the path that it took Ashlynn and I on. And so the compulsion that took place was really, really key for me in redefining who I am. Yeah. So if God, there's like so many parallels to what you've, I mean, I was the one that was driving the car. That was a thought that came to my, like, if Ashlynn was you, then I was the person who was driving the car, because guess what? I had to stop, I swear, with the back of my teeth just now. I sure didn't. I was the guy driving who did not look, who was driving, and I didn't have any buildings in the way. I was in big wide streets, and I wasn't that far away from Ashlynn, but I turned the car right into her.
Yeah.
And so I guess from all that, really, I guess what we're talking about here, what I want to be able to transition to is Alison, what were the primary takeaways? And you've alluded to some of them already, but very clearly, what were some of the primary takeaways that you had once you were compelled to slow down?
I would say, first off, I love you. Ashlynn, he's wonderful.
I know, right?
I haven't gotten to meet Coby very much, and you're just,
He's a good one.
I'm just Coby.
you're great.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for just being you. Okay, number one. Number two, definitely, like, what are the takeaways are different every 6 months.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait. So does that denote that there's also seasons
Yeah.
Yes.
post this that someone can expect in as far as what happens when they're compelled to slow down? There could be seasons,
Oh, absolutely.
and with meaning within each season.
And the
Okay, cool.
What I love about truth, and what I mean by truth is a true principle. And to me, a true principle is exactly what you just shared, is in order to see clearly, you need to be able to go within, right? In order to see clearly, in order to find a path, and is you have to be able to get quiet and go within, whatever that looks like or means to you. Like, that is truth with a capital T. Okay, so let's take that truth. Let's pretend it's a little stone. And 6 months after the accident, it sinks under the surface of the water, this little stone. And that truth, I need to go within. I need to be okay, not with the validation of the world, but with the validation of my achievement. I don't have to achieve to be worthy. Okay, that's 6 months out. Let's take that same stone and sink it down a year out. My body starts to change, because after a year, it stayed about the same. And then I felt like I gained a little weight, or I got depression. And it was like, okay, I didn't realize that my body had so much to do with my idea of success. I didn't get that, right? Like, if my body looks a certain way, other people are going to perceive me as successful. It didn't matter so much if I was sexy or hot at this point in my life. I'm sexy. It's fine. I am, right? Like, I felt really good about that. But success, right? That stone drops 18 months down the road. And now I'm resentful because that slowed me down, and look at where that person is. And I'm angry, and I've never felt anger before. I've only ever felt anxiety. Whoa, this is weird. I'm like shouting at people. And do you see what I'm saying? And so, like, what the takeaways are, I feel like they'll just continue your whole life. But if you want like concrete takeaways of being compelled to slow down, is the number one is my worth is independent of my achievement,
but also independent of your trauma,
and independent of my trauma. That's good. That's really good. And I'm like, yeah, it's
because I mean, Alison, think about what you just said though. It's independent of my achievement, because so many things we do day to day define who we are as parents, right? Or, my ability to make the bed consistently every day, or my side of the bed, defines me as a partner.
Or our relationship. So when we're betrayed, oh wait, I thought it was this, and now it turns out it's this.
Yes.
And I'm embarrassed, and I'm ashamed, and I don't want to tell anyone.
Yes. And so we've got to be able to redefine, right? Find new meaning behind the word achievement, right? But then also I keep coming back to this because I just see it in my head. I see in my mind's eye, I see the yellow dead grass of December in your accident.
Yeah.
You know that? Like, yeah. I really see that. And I think to myself, even though this happened, it doesn't define me.
Exactly. And I remember right after I got hit, a month or so, we went to IKEA. And this girl walked up to me, and this isn't totally insane. This happens in a small Utah place where I do a lot of things. Hey, you're Alison. I am. Hi, nice to meet you. She walks up to me and goes to her husband, this is Alison, the girl that got hit by a car.
Ugh.
And I called my friend and I said, I don't want to be the girl who got hit by a car. And she's very wise. And she said, but Alison, right now you are. And I clapped back at her and I said, no, I'm not. Maybe to you and maybe to her, but I'm not Alison, the girl who got hit by a car. I'm Alison. And to me, I'm not the girl who got freaking hit by a car. I've done right. But again, that comes from understanding your value independent of labels, relationships, partnerships, perception, success, achievement, body image, looks, appearance, on and on and on. You just are. You just are. And things I have learned from being hit that have changed my life for the better. I know how to be at home more. Because I had to be at home. And then holy crap, a world pandemic broke out and I had practice being at home, which would have made the pandemic 3 times as hard for me. And, right. So there's just so many things, but I think if I love to give an actionable takeaway for people is to examine their relationship with control. And how do they feel when I say you don't have control? What is that? Does that make them angry? Does that make them go, no, you're wrong? Does that make them go, yes, sister, I understand, I believe? Just because I don't care what you respond to me, because it only ever means something about you and not me. Is what is your relationship with control? And I almost think you can't talk about control without also bringing up faith and hope, and that those do not have to be religious terms. It's just faith and hope. And what part do faith or hope or trust play in control? And I can truly only imagine, in so many people who are listening, trust and control are probably closely linked. And
can I trust enough to let go of control?
And if your trust has been broken and betrayed,
Yeah.
you want to
first step is control, but it's not the right step, but we all do it.
And then you're like, but didn't I just learn I can't control? And then when I learn that, I want to hold on tighter.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And even right now with the pandemic and civil uprising and beautiful things that are happening because we had to pause, honestly, hard, ugly truths about society that were always there, that are being brought to the light because we paused. That is the value of meditation. That is the value of breath. That is the value of slow. And I thought that moving fast was just so important. And even my relationship with time has changed so much, where it's like, whatever gets done today is what needed to get done today. And anything that doesn't get done didn't need to get done today because it didn't get done.
I think you just gave a lot of people permission to be okay with ending the day with the list of things undone.
Oh, yeah.
That's super, super important, because that's ammo to hang yourself with.
And I want to go back to what I feel like was the best question ever, especially for people who are on a self-improvement, quote unquote, journey. How do you take empowerment, but then accidentally turn it to like enslavement, almost, to thinking that you can control yourself and the world and everything around you? And what is, you called it the threshold, I think. And I love that. It's almost like, I like threshold because what is the door? What is the entryway? What is it that you step over? And when you bypass and step over self-compassion, that's
rad.
That's right. It's a breath is compassion. Think of the deliciousness in a breath, the release and the exhale. There's that sweet little relief that comes, and that is self-compassion, is leaning into that sweetness, that understanding. And I just want to give permission and testify and share with as many people as possible that if you give yourself that kindness and compassion, you will be blown away at what you will actually accomplish. Because what people think is, if I don't force, if I don't coerce, if I don't hustle, if I don't shame, if I don't compel myself even, then I won't get it done. And it's just not true. Because when you give yourself the compassion and the space and the breath and you slow down, all of a sudden you stand up and you make the therapy appointment, and you stand up and you send the apology text, or you stand up and you clean and organize the whole house that you just didn't think you could clean and organize because you didn't have the energy to do it, right? And I'm just shocked. I thought I just had to like beat myself up to get all of that done.
Totally.
And you just, and people they ask me, how do I act from love rather than act from fear? And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love this. It's just gone in totally different directions that I love.
Okay.
So thank you, Alison. No, I love it all. But it's just so funny because I was talking in my women's group today about this exact idea, and you being hit by a car. I doubt anyone would say you're going to learn more self-compassion by getting hit by a car. But it's very much like recovery from anything. You set yourself up for, I'm in this growth mindset and I'm going to take these tools and use them and keep them because I'm going to need them in other ways. And so for us, absolutely, it's helping us become the people we always wanted to be and didn't know how to be. And I'm the girl, when people run into me, I'm the girl that got cheated on. And do you think that totally crossed my mind before we chose to share our stories? And it's to the point where I'm like, I don't care, because I know who I am. And your branding workshop, I mean, there's a little plug for you, but it helped me understand that I really am doing this from a place in my heart, that's my integrity. And that's why I'm here. It's not to make anyone feel whatever about me, because I'm okay with being the girl that got cheated on if it helps somebody else.
Yeah. And just when I think of you, I just think of a warrior.
Oh, well, thank you.
I just think of strength. That's what I think of when I think of you, which is funny because that's almost the opposite, I feel like, of what you said, right? Like where I'm like, and you have such a quiet strength. And I always really respect that as a very flamboyant, flashy person. I always respect it.
I'm always attracted to you though. Like that, my best friends are always big and personality, because I'm a little quiet.
And I'm attracted to
yin and yang.
Yeah. And I'm attracted, you're like Eric, my husband, right? Where like, I'm attracted to that like quiet core of strength where I'm like, it's cool how you can do that. I can't. But
and that's what makes you awesome. That's what I really like.
Alison, this has been really, really insightful, and it's been a great way to reflect on the path of healing in a way that people probably aren't going to expect. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us where our listeners can go and see what you do, what you offer, etc.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun. I feel like we did a really
cool,
good
right?
job.
Yes, I'm gonna pat myself.
We're so smart. No, I love what we came to. So I have a podcast, if you like podcasts, called Awesome with Alison. And the goal of the podcast is just to help you feel a little more awesome than you did before. So if you like anything that we talked about today, it's on the podcast in different veins. I do some interviews, not all interviews, but I do it with my husband as well. So it's another husband-wife team. And I also can be found on Instagram at the Alison Show. And that's always Alison with one L. And I don't know, guys. If you find me there, you'll find all my other stuff. I'm at this place. I'm at this place. They're like, promote or this, and I'm like, it's not that I don't care. Like, of course, I believe in what I'm doing, but I'm in a relaxed place right now where I'm like, show up and hang out. Let's just hold each other's hands through the internet for a moment, and then sure, I'll have an agenda later.
Yes.
I just don't know anymore.
And they will. They'll find you because you're good at that. So I wanted our audience to hear specifically from you because I do think it's important that people diversify what they're listening to and not have it be heavy and hard. And they need the fun. They need to see Alison dancing on Instagram. They need to hear Alison having fun on her podcast. So,
but they also need to feel your energy.
Yeah.
Alison. That's super important. And I say that because the energy that's in this space is oftentimes super, super heavy. And so if they can get a shot of like just really great, positive, hopeful, self-compassionate energy, then that will help them move forward that day. And that's what we want.
That's what I deal in. I deal in energy.
Love it.
It is. And when I'm hired and paid and price myself and decide what it is I'm doing. So I appreciate you saying it like that. Cause I'm like an energy dealer. And so right now with the energy and place of the world, I've got a little bit of energy to offer. I share it. And then other than that, that's all I can do right now.
Yep.
So I practice what I preach. Like, I'm not going to get off this and go shame myself into getting a lot done. I'm probably going to go get another Diet Coke. So that's where we're at right now.
I love it.
Love it. Guys, appreciate you listening. I'm more than positive you heard something that will uplift your day. And if you have heard that, then share it.
Yes. I do want to just promote one quick thing. If you guys haven't, if you're new to the podcast today, you can head over to get your first step, basically, over on beyond-enough.com. And it's /
Step one.
Step one. I always say it wrong. Forward or
/ step one. And if you don't really know where to start, if you don't know what the right place is, that'll give you an idea. And that will help you get rolling, because we were once those same people who were like, we don't know where we need to start, but we know we need to start. And that's the first step. So Alison, thanks again for being with us. Love having you.
Yes. Thank you.